Really liking this word for the day thing. Earlier in the week I went with stoked. This week I'm going with charged, amped, powered, switched on. You get the point.
Oh, South Africans love eGolf, but this Golf is a little bit different because it's got no engine and you can't buy it. So you might be wondering, well then what the hell is the point? Well, it's a good point actually, because Volkswagen needs to be seen to have a presence in the electric vehicle discussion here in South Africa. More and more manufacturers are plugging into the space. There are a lot of EV vehicles that you can now obviously purchase in South Africa, so it's important that when consumers start embracing this new technology, Volkswagen remains front of mind. What I find quite interesting though with the Golf is that VW never built this from the ground up to be an electric vehicle. I quite like that, because were it not for the stickers on the side doors, you wouldn't even realize that I'm driving in a Golf without an engine. And if you look at the purpose-built electric vehicles that Volkswagen have brought to market overseas, their ID range of vehicles, ID3, ID4, super cool, and those are obviously the vehicles that are coming to market. Now, having driven quite a few electric vehicles from a variety of manufacturers over the years, I thought I'd give you two key points to consider. And that is, we need to change our attitudes, and importantly, we need to change our driving styles when you get into an electric vehicle. So I'm going to start with driving styles. The first thing is that I don't use the brake pedal at all. It regenerates charge through brake retardation. So basically, the minute you lift your foot off the accelerator, it slows down and that generates charge. Think about it in your golf cart. So if I just dump my foot off the accelerator now, it's going to lurch into slow down mode. You can set the level of retardation. I've got mine set to maximum, but what's quite cool, remember I said that this Golf wasn't built from the ground up to be an electric vehicle, so they've left the gear lever, so it's very familiar when you get in. It's like, oh, am I driving in an auto or DSG Golf? The electric vehicle obviously doesn't have a gearbox, it doesn't have a gear, it's one consecutive gear, and they've used the lever as the way for you to select the retardation level. So you pull it into drive, you tap it across, and that sets you up into the various levels. So what I love is that it teaches you to drive very differently. So you now are anticipating, and I think that's a great thing. You're a lot more involved in the driving process. So if you see a traffic light up ahead that's changed, you slowly come off the accelerator and you regenerate charge in that way. It's really clever, but that's something it takes getting used to. So don't jump into your EV and be stomping on the brake pedal. Now obviously the big talking point of the electric vehicles is that instant availability of the power. There's no combustion required, there's no gearing that you've got to deal with. Put your foot down and the thing literally launches. And it is fun, everyone's going to love it, but I tell you what, that novelty factor must wear off very quickly, because so does the power of your battery. I mean, that's the quickest way to deplete your battery life. You've got your normal driver mode button that you would have in any other Golf. Now that would be selecting your chassis, so you'd be putting into sport mode. What they've done here, through pushing that button now, it's got your different EV modes. You've got normal, eco and eco plus. The minute I am sitting in traffic or I'm driving around town in the suburbs where speed limits are 60, 70, perhaps 80 kilometers an hour, I put it into maximum eco plus mode, because that limits my top end. So I actually can't get over, I think it's about 90, 95 kilometers an hour in eco plus. And it also curbs the comfort levels in the vehicle, so it kills the air conditioning. It's winter, so you don't need to be sitting blasting cool air. So that is what I've done, and that helps me maximize the range. The minute I get onto the motorway like I'm on now, I slip it across into eco, and that gives me a bit of air, and also obviously allows me to then travel a lot faster. And when I collected it fully charged, it only had a range of 214 kilometers, because like I said, this wasn't purpose built from the ground up. The ID range of vehicles will have a lot better range, but even then, having driven so many different electric vehicles, the range anxiety thing for me is absolute nonsense. Like, I don't sit and stress about it at all. The average consumer in this country, their daily commute is 50 kilometers a day. So I've now, since getting the car, done 155 kilometers in proper mixed driving environments. The highway obviously being the biggest demand on the battery life. And here I still find myself sitting with 95 kilometers of range left. I've done 150. It's like not once have I thought, oh, I need to plug in, or am I going to make it? What's the big problem? You need to consider electric vehicles like you do your mobile phone. And people are saying, oh, our infrastructure isn't geared up for it. Oh, and there's obviously flipping load shedding, Eshcom. You know, how do you guys get through your day with your mobile phones? When you see there's load shedding, you don't go, oh, how am I going to stay connected? Well, no, because you work around it. And the minute you've got your mobile phone in the car, it's plugged in. You get to work, it's plugged in. You get home, you plug it in. So it's no different with your EV vehicle. It's the best analogy, I think. Now, I could very easily have charged the eGolf. Where I was staying didn't have a dedicated garage area with power points. It was a carport. So you've got a traditional plug point that you would then plug in and let it charge overnight. It obviously takes a lot longer. But a lot of the places that you go to, shopping centres, obviously have charging points, and it's quite cool. You get your little EV card and you load credits on it, and it's no different. But I deliberately wanted to not charge at all. I wanted to drive it the entire time on one charge, just to prove that point that like you don't need to sit and stress about range. It's just bizarre. So for me, I just think South Africans are ignorant to how it actually works. I guess not many of you have driven electric vehicles, so you don't know. So you're just commenting on what the masses are saying. I think the big thing that does need to change then is our attitudes towards it. But it'd also be bloody fantastic if our government pulled their fingers out and started embracing the technology too. Because if you look overseas, any environmentally friendly vehicles, the governments heavily subsidize them. They make them affordable. They encourage you to buy them. In our country, these vehicles remain probably the most expensive that you can buy in a model lineup. And that's not going to introduce electrification to the masses. So manufacturers need to obviously fight that fight with government and continue the education process, teaching people about how electric vehicles work. So I know you guys might be getting a little bit worried that this petrolhead is, fully plugged into electric vehicles now. No, I think I'm just all about embracing change, being open to it, and I think crucially we need to find more efficient ways to do things and ways that are more environmentally conscious. Is that electric vehicles? I don't know. I think I love what Porsche is doing, exploring biofuels. I think that's a more obvious plug and play for our current situation, and obviously would work well here in South Africa. But I just want to say one thing, is that electric vehicles lack character, they lack soul. And the reason is the way that the power is delivered, the driving experience, the way EV power is experienced as a motorist is exactly the same, irrespective whether you're driving in a Golf or you're driving in a Jaguar or Mercedes-Benz or whatever it might be. That thrill off the line, the instant power, trust me, that novelty factor will wear off very, very quickly. But the character in a car comes from its combustion engine. How does that power get delivered? That is the character. So whether you jump into a Golf GTI or you're going to go and drive your Amarok or whatever it might be, they all deliver different driving experiences, and that for me is something that I think we will all miss if electric vehicles become the norm.